The meeting to order at 7:01. Laverne, would you like to lead us in the flag salute? Sure. Pledge allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sandy, would you please take roll call?
I will. Trustee Villalobos?
Here.
Trustee Bradall?
Here.
Trustee Shiokari?
Here.
Trustee Levy?
Here.
Trustee Gould?
Here.
Thank you.
Announcement recording of meeting. The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television, PCT, records and broadcasts the meeting. The board met in closed session regarding labor negotiations, and no action was taken. And other items. All right. So where am I at? Oh, public comment. Oh no, close. No, where am I at? I haven't gotten there yet. I'm on the wrong. I'm not there. Already passed the seconds. I'll figure this out soon. But okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 10th?
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Can we vote? Ayes?
I have a note for you.
Okay. There's a Kia Soul with the lights on.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta go.
All right, now we're on to number 8. Now I'm there. Okay, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board or superintendent or the public so requests, any item can be removed from this section and placed on the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Do we have any items that we want taken off of the consent agenda? No? All right, can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
A second?
A second.
All in favor?
Passes 5-0.
Ooh, imagine that. Okay. Next page. Communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. LSEA?
Nothing at the moment.
Okay. CSEA?
Nothing at this time.
People wishing to address the board, I think, yeah, all of these three do look like they are not on agenda items. So I have Connor Murphy. You take the podium.
My name is Connor Murphy, and I'm a 6th grader at Valemont. My mom is a 1st grade teacher. I think teaching is one of the hardest jobs in the world, that you have to teach and control 24 students a day. Teachers teach to see the students grow, learn, and improve. Teachers like my mom need good benefits to help their families. I need good benefits because I had 2 surgeries on my kidneys, and I still need medical attention. This summer I had a peanut reaction and I got to ride in an ambulance to the ER. If we didn't have good benefits, my parents would have to pay over $3,000. That's a lot of money. We need good benefits for our families to keep them happy, healthy, and most of all safe. I have a dream that teachers can get benefits they deserve. Thank you.
Next, Jonathan Harris.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Harris, and I am a co-chair of the LSEA bargaining committee, and I come here representing them, first of all, to welcome the new board, and thank you all for being here. I do realize, and we as a negotiating team realize that you put in a lot of time, and it's a big sacrifice for you to be here. We also realize we won't always get along, and we hope that in the future, and we're very hopeful that in the future that this will be a very respectful relationship. I wanted to speak a little bit to some of the ways that mediation is moving at the moment, and I would like to say that we're hopeful. Things have turned back towards something somewhat resembling the interest-based bargaining process that we use. And in that, we're back looking at options. It has been very beneficial for us to be able to look at numbers and speak at the table with members of the district bargaining team. In looking at those numbers, we are able to make pretty fair judgments of what our options are. And I'm very happy to say that this gives us more options. I'm still in our team, I think I speak for our team, we're very disappointed that this didn't happen from the beginning. This is part of the IBB process, and we feel like it was very unnecessary to go to impasse. We feel that this is also still a sore point for us and our membership, being that the district under impasse can still impose a last and best offer, which is not one that was met by collective bargaining. We do feel also that it is the duty of this board to meet the interests of our union as we have met, and they have made promises towards trying to attract and retain teachers. So we hope this moves forward in a positive manner. At the moment, the meetings with the district team have done that, and we appreciate it very much. We really would like to hope, and I hope that this could even be something agendized, that the board in good faith would end an impasse, actually not legally, but officially vote on that and end an impasse. This would lead to a very constructive relationship with the union. There's been a lot of damage. People are very angry. Honestly, people are not very trustful of the district at the moment as far as teachers are concerned. And we really hope to end this. We would like to invite you as board members. I know you can't meet with more than one or two of your members at a time to union meetings. We really hope to open communication with you all. I have already met with Kathy, and I really appreciate her time. And really, I think we share an interest in communicating with you all. I feel like a lot of the anger, honestly, has come from a lack of communication, and we're hopeful that will come in the future. My last little thing I'd like to say is that I think the negotiation team is pretty unified in a belief that that Pacifica wants to provide full benefits for the families of the teachers of Pacifica. And we hope that this is a value that is shared by you all. The benefits have attracted and retained a huge amount of the teachers that are here now, that are here in the district working, and we're kind of a cheap date with that. It's been a 1.5% on average increase when the district hasn't been able to pay for that. The union has shown in very good faith that we have taken it in other ways as far as class size and other ways that we are working more in order to pay for those benefits. We'll never be Hillsborough, we'll never be Portola Valley, and we'll never be able to provide the salaries that I know you guys would like to provide us with. But with these benefits, we really form a niche that we're getting teachers that otherwise wouldn't be here. So I really hope you take that to heart and realize that these benefits are something that are attracting teachers and retaining them, and it's something that for 1.5% on average gets a lot of teachers here and keeps us here. So thank you very much.
And Ia Dwyer? Isla Dwyer.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Jacobs, and I am a teacher at Cabrilla School. And the LSCA members at our site and throughout the district are pleased to see that our negotiation team has had the opportunity to meet and talk with your negotiation team. We are confident that this is a step in the right direction as far as opening the doors and communication for productive work. We would like to extend a warm welcome to our new board members, all of you. We're happy that you're up there, especially Elizabeth, who's a former parent at Cabrilla School. And we're a former parent now putting forth efforts making the district a better place. Thank you all, and we look forward to working towards a resolution and a restoration for positive feelings throughout the district. Thank you.
I don't have any more cards. In order to be compliant with the Brown Act, we can't actually make comments on negotiations and comments on what you have spoken to us about, but we would like to acknowledge you, and we know that it's not easy to come and make these announcements to the board and stand up there and you know, and we know that that's we appreciate that you come and do this and give us information on how you're feeling, and we invite you to come back as things roll on, to continue to do that communication, because we do appreciate what you do. Does anybody else want to make a comment?
Yeah, I want to second everything that Andrea said, that we understand how, we understand that this is taking yet more time out of your busy lives with your families, and papers that no doubt you should be grading, and lessons that you should be preparing. So we really do understand the sacrifice that it takes to come here and talk to us. And the bravery, especially you, Connor. Thank you very much thank you very much for coming down and talking to us. And we really, we just want to reassure you that we really do listen to everything that you say and take it seriously.
Thank you for the welcome. It is an interesting time to start on the board. But again, mirroring what my colleagues have said, we hear you. We're going to keep trying, and hopefully we can all get through this together.
And I want to thank everybody at Cabrilla for the nice welcome, and everyone. And like I said, just to let you know that even though we cannot comment on what's said during this point in the meeting, that we are listening.
I don't know what else I can say, but I just really thank everybody for coming out and sharing your thoughts on the process that we're going through, and that I'm listening.
Thanks. Any correspondence?
We do.
Okay.
This is from Jim Tassa, who was our chief of police, who just retired. And he said, Wendy and board members, thank you so much for recognizing my retirement and having Eric Restaines present me with a proclamation and gift card on behalf of the school district. Your thoughtfulness and generosity are truly appreciated, Jim. It was nice to get that card from him when I returned to work.
Okay. We'll have just a moment to let everybody get out of the room that doesn't want to stay. So the next session, Board Superintendent Communications. This is where we can address a non-agendized item, in order to maybe inform the superintendent of something that you've seen going on around the schools, and this could be an event that you went to at the school, and congratulating a school for something that you've seen going on, or it can be a concern. So I don't. You want to start, Matt? So.
Sure. I think that I just wanted to focus on Read Aloud Day at Ortega. I think that's one of the last things that I did before the break. That's through Pacifica School Volunteers, and it's a really fantastic event. A huge number of people participated in it, and the Steadfast Tin Soldier was a huge hit in 5th grade. And then, in addition to that, I think a lot of the things that people are going to say I've been to as well, so I'll let them talk about those things.
Well, like most of us, attended the conference. I'm assuming that's part of what you were going to talk about. And had a very nice introduction to the CPAC group, hearing about upcoming ability awareness days at our different schools. I look forward to seeing some of those. And just did a few school tours. Cabrillo with the kindergarten parents who are incoming kindergartner parents, and Ortega. It was nice to see the facilities and meet some more of the teachers a little more on one-on-one.
Went to various winter band concerts right before break at Valimar and Ocean Shore Chorus, IBL and Cabrillo. And then actually attended the Ocean Shore Abilities Awareness Day, which was really amazing thing to see. So got to watch that and watch all the kids participating, and just the school-wide culture. It was really impressive. I know Cabrillo's is coming up, so I want to go by that one also. And the PEF patron party, of course, the same conference that we all went to.
Started off really quickly going to the CSBA conference and doing some training on new board members. A lot of interesting topics, Brown Act, bargaining, interest-based bargaining. What's the other one? Oh, LCFF and how we want to present the findings at a later time. So I found everything beneficial, and I'm open to going to more trainings. And I think I'm going to have a full month making some more meetings and going out to the sites.
So I've been a little remiss about sites because I have been overwhelmed with work, but one of the overwhelming things that I have been to at work was a training on the SBAC, the CAS. How are we supposed to say that?
CAS.
CAS. But it's got 2 A's and 2 P's.
Yeah, I know.
So how are you supposed to say
I know.
And so I was actually at a training where we got to see last year's tests, and you had to be sworn to secrecy that you would not reveal what was on these tests, because they will reuse them, is what they said. Got to see last year's tests and student responses and the rubrics that they were graded by, and got to practice grading some of those and get an understanding of what our students are going to need to do to perform in those tests. And the reason that I bring it up is that we might want to try to see what kind of trainings we can get from the county for our teachers or our teacher leaders to get a little insight into this kind of mystery of this testing that we're stuck with doing, in this year, and so that in some ways teachers understand whether they are preparing students for those kinds of tests, or whether they're kind of missing the mark. So I would kind of encourage us you to look into that.
To that point, we started talking about SBAC now. Yesterday was our first, was a leadership council meeting, and so we're very fortunate to have really developed our infrastructure this last summer. So our systems are up, our internet connectivity is there, we've purchased more Chromebooks, and we just started the conversation around training and ensuring that our students understand the pieces of doing the test. And there are some practice modules for students, so we're working with our principals in ensuring that we do some of those practice tests, especially within the computer lab setting and using the Chromebooks, et cetera, because it is a whole different way of assessment for students. So it's kind of a timely conversation because we do have to get ready. I also wanted to bring up about our closure for that rainy day. We need to commend, that happened in December. The flooding situation, it was a hard decision to make because, you know, to close school is a difficult one, but I think for the safety of our families and the city was very appreciative of it because there was flooding in our streets. Bringing some commendations, however, to some of our departments, the facility maintenance and operations people did come to work. The entire district office was still open, just in case there were families who needed support. And some of our employees needed support getting caught in the rain trying to get here. And we also had our custodians all at the site so that if there were any leakage or the roof leakage, they would be able to get it fixed and ready for school for the next day. So they did a wonderful job. We had very few incidences, and I think that the schools were ready to be open the next day without delay. And so I think that we need to really commend our staff and team for getting that work done. Winter break, we had the opportunity for thanking the unions, our labor partners, CSEA and LSEA. We closed all of our schools and the district office so that everyone could have a nice winter break. The Pacifica Police Department was nice enough to be the on-call if there was ever an emergency. You know, we also have bay alarm, but you know, we wanted someone that they could call. So there weren't any incidences that we know of that we reported to us during winter break. So it was a pretty quiet time, and again, thank everyone for that opportunity to give to our staff, all of our staff members. And we are having January Jazz on Saturday, so hopefully with the MMIP, that will be on Saturday. That highlights really the strong work our band does. So hopefully people will be able to come out and see the work during the day. Is that
4 o'clock for the name of the bands and 7 o'clock for adults.
For the adults, for the evening performances. And then this Monday, we will have our Silicon Valley Math Initiative Professional Development, again around Common Core mathematics. So we're anxious to get that going, and we will all be at IBL. The Pacifica School District will be at IBL along with the North County Math Consortium, grades 6 through 8, and the high schools. So I think that'll be fun. Plus, we're doing some content work with our teachers who are not teaching mathematics. So our English language arts teachers will be getting together, social science teachers, science. Dr. Avila has put together some training for first aid, bloodborne pathogens for some of our paraprofessionals, and we will be doing some training on school-wide positive behavior and intervention support, our SWPBIS, for social climate with our staff as well. So it'll be a very full and busy day on Monday. Thank you.
All right, so we have a Parcel Tax Oversight Committee Annual Report at 7:25, and we're just running 2 minutes behind, so that's not bad.
So I was going to do the parcel tax report because Remy Tan, who was going to come to the meeting tonight, is held up at work. I do see we have a member of the parcel tax committee in the audience. By chance, Joan Weideman is here, so feel free to join me in relaying the report from the committee. So just kind of a reminder, thank you to the citizens of Pacifica for the parcel tax. We first started with Measure N, and then we were able to renew with Measure L in 2008. And as part of the ballot language, there is what's called an oversight committee. The oversight committee reviews how the board chooses to spend the expenditures and checks to see that they're in alignment with the ballot language. The committee does not make the decisions on how the funds are spent, rather they review the decisions the board has made and then kind of see if it's in alignment with the ballot language. So just a quick review. Well, first I'll tell you how the committee is comprised. The committee is comprised of 6 parents from the 6 school sites, which are appointed by the PTOs of each school, and then 7 community members. And the process for community members is there's an application process. The applications are brought to the board for approval and selected. Nelson has the committee members up on the screen, so thank you, Nelson. While you're looking at that, I'll just review the ballot language. Just the first sentence of the ballot language is to protect local elementary and middle schools from state budget cuts, maintain high-quality education, protect academic programs in math, science, reading, and writing, attract and retain qualified teachers, and support library services and classroom computer instruction. And it's $118 a year for 5 years. So the committee met on November 10th. We do meet annually right after the unaudited actuals are completed so that they can review the final expenditures. And Nelson, if you don't mind going to the next sheet where you can see the expenditures. The committee did report out that after careful review, we report that all monies collected by the parcel tax in the fiscal year 2013-14 have been used in accordance with the language and the spirit of Save Pacifica Schools Act of 2008 and the renewal in 2011. So the process the committee goes through is we prepare this report for them, and they go through 2013-14 first, and they look at each category. For example, teacher salaries is the first category for expenditures. And then they review the ballot language, which I just read to you. And the committee goes line by line, and they match the expenditures with the ballot language. And then there is some discussion. Wendy and I are both there to answer questions, as well as 2 board members. Both Joan and Richard were present at the meeting. And sometimes there's discussion about how, some of the categories. The other thing that we do with the committee is Wendy does a report on student achievement during that committee meeting. So that's, in summary, the committee meeting and their report out. I don't know if anybody has any questions from the board. If Joan was at the meeting, if you have anything to add to the report, since Wendy was unavailable to come tonight.
No, it's pretty complete.
Thank you.
So Josie, could you go over the expenses that went from a very large expense to 0 and just kind of explain to us again, where those went?
Okay, yeah, there was some shifts last year, and it's, some people haven't been following, but over the years we have made some shifts between parcel tax and general fund. For 2013-14, the literacy and math coaching was one of the expenditures, and those support the teachers and staff development. That was shifted in 14-15 to what's called supplemental funds, because part of the LCFF, local control funding formula, of how we're to spend our funds, we have to designate a certain portion of those funds to serve the free and reduced and the foster students and the English learner students, the students of need. And so those are supplemental funds that's built into our budget, and those coaching, which we call specialists, are now charged to the supplemental funds. And so that's why in 2014-15 there is 0 charge to parcel tax. And then geometry district-wide is something that we had talked about over the last year and a half, about how with the implementation of the Common Core we would no longer be having that supplemental geometry program. The other thing that changed was technology. When we were doing a budget study session in May, kind of also in, I guess it was from February to May, we were talking about how we were going to implement our technology structure over the summer. And the board actually brought up that you could use one-time funds to spend on these technology one-time purchases. And in the parcel tax language, technology is supported. And so there was, if you look at the beginning of the thing, there was a beginning balance of $235,000. There was some one-time funds of parcel tax sitting in the parcel tax balance, and so we aligned that with technology and spent, and we were able to implement our technology infrastructure over the summer. So those were the big changes from 13-14 to 14-15. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions? Any comments for Jesse? Any
Just
comments
basically,
for
thank
us?
you. Well, just to thank you to the people of Pacifica for agreeing to fund the parcel tax, because that's that's a very big sacrifice on their part, and it has really helped. It has really helped the district in times of need.
And to the committee members for giving their time to meet and review the expenditures.
It seems like it would be tough to live with that, without that parcel tax, which sunsets in
June 2017.
And that's a lot of teacher salaries that we could end up losing if we don't renew the parcel tax. Okey dokey, thank you. All right. Oh, we've been waiting for this. The 2013-14 audit report.
And we do have a presentation tonight from Sheldon Chavon. He's the partner from Chavon and Associates who reviews our books and prepares our audit report.
Good evening. Let me get ready really quickly. Thank you for the pointers. Just making this guy's working okay. We have power. Okay. All right, so welcome to 2015. Happy New Year. Now let's take a look back to June 30, 2014. Something like 6 months ago, 7 months ago, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start with what the auditing standards were. The audit is performed under 4 different auditing standards. The most significant of those being the government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. I always have to look, Comptroller, I don't like that word, but it is. And standards and procedures for audits of K-12 local education agencies, otherwise known as the state compliance audit procedures. The state compliance audit procedures are published by the Education Audit Appeals Panel. The Education Audit Appeals Panel, if you're not familiar with, was an agency that was created by the state about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer than that now, to kind of govern the audit procedures from year to year because of the constantly changing state compliance requirements and code requirements in California. Now, because the district was subject to a single audit, that's when you spend $500,000 more in federal awards, there's another standard that they have to follow, or that the auditor has to follow when performing these audits, and that's following OMB A133 auditing standards. So there's numerous risk criteria that we have to follow when determining what the major programs are. And for June 30, 2014, we tested the special education cluster of programs as a major program for the district. So this can change from year to year. So if you spend $1.5–2 million in federal awards, 1 year, based on the risk criteria, it might be child nutrition, it might be Title I, the next it might be special education. And you can have multiple major programs from year to year. Now, there were some new state compliance auditing procedures, or audit procedures, in the 2014 fiscal year. Those covered the local control funding formula, the California Clean Energy Job Act, education protection account funds, and unduplicated local control funding formula people accounts. All right, so some new areas that we had to test because of the new state law. A lot of work involved in that, a lot of new procedures, a lot of new processes. So we did have some findings at other districts this year related to not meeting some of the public postings and the public hearing requirements and things of that nature. Pacifica, you'll see later on, did not have a finding in that area, so that was awesome news. And moving on down the line. So we talked a little bit about the government auditing standards. Now we'll touch a little on the governmental accounting standards. So this is governed by GASB. And let's see, I might have a little something. GASB, all right, Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So there wasn't anything new in 2013-14 related to the governmental accounting standards. So that's awesome, because I don't have anything weird to add to this weird report we already give you. But the problem is in 14-15. 14-15, there's going to be a substantive change. So in the current fiscal year, and in the next few months, what you're going to see that is that STRS and PERS are going to issue some new valuation reports, actuarial valuation reports. And what we're going to get from that is the unfunded liabilities related to PERS and STRS. And we're going to take those unfunded liabilities and report those in your financial statements in 14-15. So the district's financial statements and the government-wide financial statements specifically, you're going to have a new liability, something that you've never seen before. And really what's happening is GASB and the state love each other, because they got together and said, guess what, guys, we're going to share the love. And we're going to share with all the districts in California. We're going to raise your contribution rates with STRS, and we're going to raise your contribution rates with PERS. And so that's what's happening. So you can see the financial impact in 14-15 in the sense of the presentation of the financial statements. You'll see the financial impact in the sense of cash flow over time, in the sense of your increasing contributions. So I did a little bar chart to kind of show some of the numbers, and really just to kind of, so you can kind of see the, oh, look at that one. So you can see kind of where things went from year to year. So 2014 is that dark reddish color, and then 2013 is that goldish yellow color, kind of mustard. So if you're looking at the different categories, charges for services, operating grants, property taxes, and then grants and entitlements unrestricted. Hold on one second. I'm thinking we got a description flip. Let me double check this. Yeah, fingerprinting technology works so well. Okay. So. Okay, we're good. Scared me for a second. All right, so you can see basically that there's a consistency from 14 to 13. You're going to see the same thing in the expenses. Now, keep in mind these are government-wide numbers, so these aren't your fund statement numbers. So there's some difference there in accounting. So it's important to note that for the expense side, the impact on instruction, right? So that's, this is kind of what we want to see. We want to see that most of the district's expenses are directly related to instruction and then instruction-related services. So that's what you get from this. And of course, you're always going to have some plant services and then interest and fiscal charges. So you'll see, a little bit of a drop in interest in this last fiscal year. It's kind of interesting that that happens, right? General obligation bonds, the way that the rates are, they actually fluctuate over time. They're fixed for the different, tranches that exist, but they actually do fluctuate over time. All right, a little bit more numbers. We want to be transparent about the types of bonds that the district has. We do have capital appreciation bonds, and with capital appreciation bonds, you get a little funny thing called accreted interest. So the accreted interest is really the change in the value of the bonds over time. And what ends up happening is it's similar to compounding interest in the sense that as that obligation, the value of the obligation goes up, the district's liability goes up, and you really have to look at this column to see how that impacts. So you can see that we started with basically $17 million in accreted interest in addition to your principal on July 1st, 2013. And then we added almost $1.5 million of value increases or accreted interest to that long-term debt. We did have a redemption because some of it started to mature. And then we came up with an additional $18.4 million to the general obligation bonds on top of the original principal, the original cash issuance of 16.7. So a lot of accounting going on. You get service requirements. Ultimately, you pay back this $35 million down there, except for the bond premium. So a little bit over $35 million actually will be paid out over time, and that's the actual cash requirement for the district's debt service. The results, we had another good audit year. We didn't have any exceptions in the audit opinions, so the reports are unmodified. And there were 4 separate opinions in the report because there are 4 different auditing standards that we follow. So pretty simple. The most significant accounts or disclosures in the 13-14 audit report were cash, capital assets, and long-term debt. I don't think there's any surprises there. If you wanted to take a look, I put some page numbers there, but I'm not going to go pull that up. I don't think we really want to do that. But I will say that long-term debt doesn't include just the obligation bond, general obligation bonds. It also includes OPEB, right? So there's a liability and other post-employment benefits. That from GASB, again, GASB 45, which is somewhat similar to PERS and STRS, but a little different. So, a little different in the sense that you don't record the whole liability this year to year. There were not any audit adjustments or material weaknesses. That's huge. You get material weaknesses, it's a big problem. It affects your bond ratings. And, well, here you go. Material weakness is a control deficiency that leads to an audit adjustment. Right? So they're related. There were not any disagreements with management. Thank you, Jason. There were no significant pass-on adjustments. So what's a pass-on adjustment? Well, a pass-on adjustment is the difference between a number reported by the district and the expected or recalculated number from the auditor. So we identify an expectation, and if the district didn't really hit that number, but it was super insignificant, we're not going to report it to the board. If we had an adjustment that was somewhat significant but not material, because we have to go through that whole process of identifying what's material as an auditor, if we had something that's somewhat significant but not material, then we would present that to a list of passed-on adjustments. We didn't have anything in that. So that's it. Blank screen's it. So, any questions, comments, concerns?
You said something about LCAP, that some people had, some districts had findings about LCAP, but that's just you just look at the LCAP process, you don't look at the LCAP itself, or do you look at the LCAP?
Well, we're going to start looking more at the LCAP in the future, but the states hasn't caught up yet. At least they hadn't in 13-14, so they didn't really provide us with any guidance related to that except for one or two procedures. The attendance side of it was the focus that they wanted us to get into, so that's when we did do some testing on indicated attendance, ALPAD, stuff like that. But, really, when it comes to, actually the LCAP, when it came to that comment though, what I was really referring to was the new compliance requirements in general, that at some of my districts we did have findings related to not having posted agendas on time or public hearings and things like that. And so real technical kind of stuff that they just didn't do in time. Not a big deal, just a slap on the hand. So,
but you will in the future be looking more, you will be
yeah,
looking at the...
Yeah, it's going to evolve. It's going to evolve. 14-15, we anticipate spending most of our time in that area when it comes to state compliance.
There are a couple things that I feel like I've mentioned in previous audits, but I just want to confirm, I just want to confirm them yet again. First, I want to thank everybody for the finding that there's no deficiencies, because that's, just so people understand that that's not just the DO and the finance people, but it is actually people out at all the sites that are being audited in terms of making sure that their procedures in terms of, say, attendance or how they handle cash if somebody hands them a 20 for lunch and stuff, how those things are being handled. So it's really kind of a huge deal that everyone was able to do that. And then with regard to the STRS and PERS unfunded liability showing up on the balance sheets next year, the thing that was explained to us last year, and I just want to confirm that, is that since we can't actually contribute to our STRS and PERS liability in any way, the number is sort of irrelevant, right? I mean, like, there will be this huge liability that we have, but individual districts cannot reduce their liability by setting aside for it.
It's an interesting situation where basically you have to pay what you're told, as an LEA. If you were a city, you can actually pre-fund. But with an LEA, I've never heard of it ever happening. I don't know, honestly, if there's a legal restriction that says you cannot pre-fund. I'm assuming that there would be. But there are towns and cities and other types of, special districts, sanitary districts that are pre-funding PERS and STRS. They're starting off with these little side funds, though, that they had set up because their plan was falling short. Mm-hmm. So they had set up a side fund to kind of keep pace. And so they're paying off those side funds first. Now I'm starting to see pre-funding directly into the first place. So at some point in the future, that may change. But right now, yeah, you are correct that you're told to pay 12%, you pay 12%.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. And then lastly, for the capital appreciation bonds, because I know last year that was a certain amount of a stir over the CABs, just to review why those get done that way is that my understanding is, you have a 30-year bond, and there is a limit on the amount of interest that the taxpayers can essentially be on the hook for at any given time, and yet you want to rebuild all the schools at the beginning of the term. So the capital appreciation bonds allow us to rebuild all of the schools at the beginning and then continue to pay off over time. And if we had not been able to do that, then there would have been some schools that got rebuilt a lot later because we would have had to pay off some of the interest from the bonds that we put out at the beginning before we could put out more bonds to get more money to rebuild the rest of the schools. Is that
Perfect.
correct? Just so the public understands.
Yeah, you're basically deferring the interest.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Sean? We do have one public comment. John Weideman is going to...
Joan Weideman, a community member. But look where I am on a Wednesday. All right, I just came down because I knew this and the parcel tax were on the agenda, and as the retiring gray hair, I just would like to commend Josie, the district office staff, and all of the staff support out at the schools that turn these reports out every year. And since I've been on the board, this is what our reports have looked like. To have sustained the fiscal responsibility and the integrity through staff cuts and changes that were coming at us left and right is commendable. And I think this kind of information is the kind of things that really needs to be shared with the public as we begin to move towards the parcel tax, because one of the most important things about the parcel tax passing is that the community have trust in the financial situation of the district and the spending of that money. So I highly encourage information like this to be disseminated as publicly as possible, and just to remember that 60% of your likely voters have no children under the age of 18 in their homes. So it's got to be out while the parents provide a lot of the backbone to get it done. The people who actually voted are people that are not actually really very connected to the school. So thank you for yet another fiscally sound year.
So, do we do a motion before we do discussion?
To accept the audit report?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Joe. I mean, math, I'm sure it was math. Okay, so I need a motion to approve the audit report.
So moved.
Second? Okay, discussion.
The only, I don't really have a discussion on the audit report, but again, I would like to thank Josie for her patience since I am joining the audit committee, and going through all of this is a little mind-boggling, so thank you. And as I'm learning, the truly important pages are at the back that say what you said. Yes.
I thought the kind of discussion about the CAB, the capital appreciation bonds was kind of helpful, and I'm glad you asked that question, because it seemed like it was kind of a nightmare last year, and grand jury, and we were just one of the few districts that had those the few districts that had the bonds up here, and it kind of made us all think about how is it that we're funding these bonds, and I think it has had repercussions in doing that, but it certainly did seem like a good idea at the time. It seems to work financially to do those. So, but I guess there will be no other CAB bonds for schools. That won't happen. But we will find ways to.
Yeah, I think with the issue could have been, and I don't know, you probably know the best, was the percent.
The repayment
for
ratios.
the repayment ratios. And so I think for Pacifica, and we just needed to watch that more closely, and I think we were like within 1% or 2 out, because they chose, the legislator changed the level, the percentage level. So we just kind of went over it. But, and that's why we've asked it to be part of our audit report now, and to make sure that we monitor and watch it.
Okay, so, shall we approve this audit report? All in favor?
Passes 5-0.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
See you next year. Come on, I'll see you next one.
How often do you have to meet?
Just twice.
Oh, okay, okay, good. Okay, school accountability report cards, SARC.
So I am coming to you with a recommendation to approve the 2013-2014 school accountability report cards for our 6 schools. The School Accountability Report Card, or SARC, is a state mandated document that must be completed every year. It's designed with strict components so that the public can view information about their schools. They're based on the previous school year, and I have made 2 changes to all of them since it was posted. The state did not release the suspension and expulsion information in time for the board posting, but it's released now. And so you all have those numbers. All of our suspension and expulsion data is below the state averages. And the other piece is that we have to include this section D on AYP information, adequate yearly progress. This was calculated through the STAR program, the CST tests that we no longer give, and there is no new AYP information. So it's just a big blank box. But I talked with the company we use to put together our SARCs, and we're going to fill those boxes with NA, just so that it doesn't look like a blank box. But other than those 2 changes, they are as posted. They need to be approved by the board each year and posted on our websites by February 1st to be compliant with this regulation. Questions? Okay.
Maybe I do have a question for you. Can we actually vote on approving these since you're going to change them?
Yes, with the changes noted. So we would like to approve these with the changes noted.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the SARCs? Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Anybody find anything interesting in those SARCs that the principals spend a lot of time on?
Well, a lot of good, a lot of good things that the facilities are in very good repair. The numbers of highly qualified teachers are extremely high and going up, that there are very few misclassifications. I think there's only 1 misclassification in the entire district, which is awesome. And as you mentioned, that the suspension and expulsion rates are actually well below the state averages. And things can always be better, but there was a lot of really good news in there.
Anything else? Okay, so all in favor of approving the SARCs?
Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Tina. I'm getting this down, Wendy. I am ahead of schedule. Okay. Wendy's report. San Mateo County Committee on School District Organization. Why do they leave? Every time a new item comes up, more people walk out.
Not their item. Shouldn't have to stay.
San Mateo County Committee on School District Organization, potential redraw of trustee areas for San Mateo County Board of Education.
So this is just a background information and then just to get your guidance to determine the direction the board would like to go for our next meeting. This county committee is really a state, was founded through state legislation, and the charge is to study and make recommendations and decisions on district reorganizations. There are like several things that they look at. You could talk about transfer of territory between among school districts. I think we just did one with Skyline College, and that was approved by the board. School district unification or de-unification, annexation of all or part of one district to another, so really around boundaries. So right now what they also do is they kind of go through maybe every 10 years to kind of look to see how the representation is within our county as far as numbers. And so if we could pull up the boundary options, you will see that there is currently a disproportionate number of people represented the way that our district is currently structured, the boundary structure. So status quo is the first line, so that, or the first column, so that's how we are now. Plan 1 is now what the committee is discussing about what are some potential options they could do. Andrea Gould served on that committee representing us for Pacifica, and I believe it will be Laverne Villalobos for 2015. So indications are in status quo, I'm trying to get bigger on my screen, is that currently trustees in Area 1, for example, represents 29,700 people, about 4% of the population, and trustee in Area 6, which is the red one, represents about 22% of the population. So again, there's some disparity. As you go over to the different plans, the difficulty or the configuration then becomes which elementary districts, because it's around elementary districts, will you be paired with? And so that becomes part of the conversation, or if you have concerns around that. Pacifica could be affected by this. With status quo, excuse me, we are paired with Jefferson Elementary, Brisbane, and Bayshore. That's our North County Map Consortium. In Plan 1, we would no longer be paired with those particular districts, but paired with South San Francisco. In Plan 2, you would see that we would revert back to Pacifica, Jefferson, Brisbane, and Bayshore. And then you could see how the numbers compare, the percentages compare down below.
Thank you.
So,
I do have a question for you, Wendy. These trustee areas, these trustees make which decisions?
it's the San Mateo County School Board. So they might do, like, if we have a SARB situation, and it goes to the county, they would participate in SARB reviews. They would do expulsions if it were to be, if there was a request to review an expulsion that happens in a school district. They also look at inter-district transfers. The information, if a decision was rendered at the district, a family was not in support of, they could go to the San Mateo County School Board to plead their case about an inter-district transfer, those types of things. They also, and you know how they serve us as San Mateo County School Boards Association, they help us in making sure that we move forward in our county as well, programs, et cetera.
So I think I'm unclear on, is there a benefit of being grouped with a certain other district?
Well, and that's where I think the conversation comes, if you have someone who is representing kind of like districts that we're with, there's this thought and notion that then they have a better sense about our needs and can represent us. If we go with a different configuration, South San Francisco, although I love them, they are a unified district, so they have different needs than we do. And they're over the hill. We don't necessarily collaborate in the sense that we do with Jefferson Elementary, Brisbane, and Bayshore. And then, of course, now with Jefferson High School District. So it depends on how you think about it. So between status quo, Plan 1 and Plan 2, it appears status quo or Plan 2, if you want to stay with our partner districts that we've been working with, that regionally that might be helpful, because we do have a tendency to articulate more and support each other because of our proximity.
So, when I went to this meeting, I kept looking at Plan 1, Plan 2, and seeing that, Pacifica was gonna get moved or not, and what is the other district? I can't even see it between.
Looks like San Bruno Park.
San Bruno Park gets moved, and, yeah. So, but what everybody else in the room, or what a lot of other people in the room were really concerned about, was that San Carlos, in both Plan 1 and Plan 2, San Carlos, God, I can't read that. No, it's not San Carlos, it's Redwood Shores.
Oh, that gets stuck with the coast-side.
They get stuck with the coast-side, whereas in status quo, they were back in that, they were in the red, and then now that, and then in either one of the plans, they get moved to the coast-side, and they weren't real happy about that, but I didn't even notice it until somebody pointed it out to me. It's like, I was just concerned about us in San Bruno Park. And,
I know it's hard, huh?
yeah, so, it's, San Carlos is, I'm sorry, Redwood Shores, whatever there, is trying to lobby for not being part of the coast-side, which means they're gonna want people to, vote against Plan 1 and Plan 2 and go for the status quo. And, to me, it seems like we would, benefit from staying with our sisters, and not moving over with South San Francisco. And San Bruno Park being a small district probably wouldn't have enough influence to say, oh, we don't want to be with South San Francisco. Yeah, they may not have the influence. It seems like Redwood Shores might have some influence in this manner and kick us back to status quo. But I think we need to send some kind of resolution to the
committee.
To the committee.
Is that what let's see, this says information and discussion.
Yeah,
So is the idea
yeah.
that we would discuss what we wanted and then maybe you would produce a resolution that says we would prefer X over Y?
Correct. And then it'll be an action item at the next board meeting.
Understood.
So anybody have any thoughts?
Is there something that's not working with the status quo? I mean, I'm for change if there's something that's not working.
I think it appears to me, it appears that it could be just the population range, because.
It's the only thing I can see.
Yeah, and it's very few people live on the coast side. So
Right.
right now there's a coast side district, it looks like, which has very, very few people in it. And then this red area that includes Belmont Redwood Shores is the biggest, and it's humongous. So it looks like really all they were looking, it looks like the only thing they did in Plan 2 is they just took one of the red districts and stuck it in with the coast side to try to redress that balance. And then the middle plan does some other stuff, but I don't really know, I'm not sure why we got put with South City, even in that plan, we're neither the lowest nor the highest.
It feels like they're just kind of
district, so-
picking on us because we're a small district, I think we should
Stand a
take a
second.
stand here. That they just can't throw us in with anybody. I truly feel this way. I think that they did the same thing with San Bruno Park. Oh, it's a small district. They won't really have that much to say about it. And that red district is growing. That's where the growth's going on in the county, is down in there. That's a friend of mine in Sequoia High School said that they are looking at 1,500 new students over the next 3 years in that district. So that part of the county is growing, and so this inequity is just going to get bigger. But why pick on us? Why don't they pick?
Well, so can we just express a desire for either the status quo or Plan 2? We'd like to stay with our fellow Jefferson Union feeder districts. Is that?
I think that would
reasonable.
be reasonable. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't sound like there's a benefit to change for us.
And then it still gives them an option of moving Redwood Shores if they want to, if we offer both of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Will do.
Okey-doke.
Thank you.
Why can't I read that on my computer?
It's hard. Well, mine, can you
Yeah.
open it up?
Yeah, well, I don't have one of those.
Sorry.
All right, the second quarter report on Williams uniform complaints.
Okay, this is information for the board. We're required to report quarterly any complaints in the categories of textbook and instructional materials, teacher vacancy or misassignment or facility conditions. And we're happy to report that there were no complaints this quarter.
Thank you. All right. Now we're down to board bylaws, board policies, and administrative regulations. Oh, wait, it's nice. Come on.
Nobody's safe for life.
All right, so we got the first reading of BP 5141.33 head lice.
So here we go again. This was brought to the board back on November 19th, and information and discussion occurred between the board. The reason why it was brought back to the board on November 19th is at a prior board meeting, there were a couple parents that had a concern about lice outbreak at the school where their children attended. So to have a deeper discussion about lice and lice policies, we invited 2 registered nurses employed by San Mateo County Office. They did a great presentation. And then after that presentation, the board had further discussion. And they made some suggestions regarding school-wide screenings, as well as communication to our community about lice. And so that's reflected in the revised board policy that you are looking at.
Any questions for Ray?
So, let's see, I had a couple of, the first is, the policy says, if a student is found with active adult head lice, they'll be allowed to stay in school till the end of the school day, encourage treatment. And it says they shall be informed that the student shall be checked upon return to school the next day and allowed to remain in school if no active head lice are detected. But I don't think that's actually true because we had decided we are not excluding kids on the basis of head lice. So actually they'll be allowed, it sounds like they'd actually be allowed to remain in school regardless, but if they were still detected, then we would want to move to another level of intervention with the parents or guardians, right? So that I'm not, is that sentence what was intended?
Yes, and then did you want to discuss a suggestion?
Did I want to do, I mean, like, I guess, I guess the suggestion would be the parent guardian shall also be informed that the student shall be checked upon return to school the next day, period, right? I mean.
Right, and so what you're suggesting is delete and allowed to remain in school if no active head lice are detected.
Yeah, if I've properly understood what it is that
Right.
the nurses were saying, that's what they were saying, is that students should not be excluded for head lice. So if that's the case, then we wouldn't exclude them. We would, we would check them, but we wouldn't exclude them.
Okay.
Is that your understanding of what they had said?
We can delete that. And then, how about informational materials?
It's, I know I wrote you about that, and then I realized that it is actually in there. Because it says, the parent guardian of any such student shall be given information about the treatment of head lice. So presumably what that means is that if lice are found, they would be handed that, that pamphlet and said, look here, that's how it says to treat them. And actually, when I read the pamphlet, I realized that the next day exclusion thing was probably good that wasn't in there anyway, because some of the methods of treatment could take longer, right? There was one that said you could take up to 2 weeks of combing them out, and obviously under those circumstances, the next day they would not be gone anyway, so.
Okay.
So, which part are you deleting? Let me see if it reads right.
So on page 1, paragraph 3, where it begins with if
I have questions all over. Yeah, well, I have the same thing.
Oh, okay.
But I want to see if it now reads the way I think it should read. So I'm on the paragraph. Which phrase are you crossing out?
and allowed to remain in school if no active head lice are detected.
I'm going to check the student for, if it determines the student remains effective, the principal of the district content, that's needed, he provide.
It's the last
The last
sentence
sentence
of that
of paragraph.
Of this paragraph?
No, up here.
Oh, okay.
So it says, the parent shall be informed that the student shall be checked upon return to school the next day.
Period. Okay. Okay, and then what would be the point of checking them the next day if they are just, going to be allowed to come into school?
Read the next paragraph.
They're checking, but we're not sending this kid home.
But we might, if I guess the idea is that, if it's there, we do want to monitor the situation. If we feel like the parents or guardians are not actually doing anything to treat the condition, then we do want to sort of step it up and intervene a little bit more strongly to try to get them to actually do it. Because I think that was sort of one of the concerns of the people who had come before, was that they said, well, there are people who are like, I shampooed their hair, it's all good, So I think that, that was the idea, is that we want to make sure that if they do return to school and they haven't treated it, or maybe they treated it and unsuccessfully, because that happens too, that we were able to sort of provide more guidance to them. And maybe it's a multidisciplinary team, so we might, I don't know, we might call on our friends, the nurses, and say,
Yes.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that it's just kind of the way things got communicated, that this seems clear now. And didn't they talk about, being able to detect and, do we need to train this principal or designee to look for lice, or do we just assume that everybody's got good enough eyes to see the little critters?
Well, we do have a nurse that goes to all of our school sites, and she works with the principal, office staff, and designated parent volunteers, and does training. So that's a current standard practice in our district.
So I just want to be clear that this then does state, because, it doesn't state that the child will be asked to go home. It does state the child will get to stay but we will do some more education and provide them with guidance. So I just wanted that clear, because I believe that is a change from our current practice.
Yes.
That will be.
Okay.
They're not just allowed to stay, they're allowed to come back to school with head lice. That now we're just gonna inform a little bit more, but they can have active head lice that second day and the third day, or until it can be taken care of.
But I think we also have to keep in mind that, having been on the head lice brigade, and I think the nurses also touched on this, it's very hard and rare to actually see them, even when you're doing a scalp check. So really, if you're seeing them, it's a very large, I don't want to say infection, but a large gathering. Infestation, thank you. So, and in which case, I think the question of going forward, I think that allows an opportunity for education with the parents or the caregivers of what actually needs to happen. Because if this is happening to the child, that means there is a lice infestation in that home that could spread to the entire family. I mean, it's not just a school issue. So this idea of checking them, having, like I said, having been on that group, it's very hard to find them. They're quick and they're teeny, so.
So there needs to be a lot of training.
Yes.
And support to
Right.
the family.
And then, this paragraph that starts out, schools will not practice random mass screenings. Obviously, it's going to have to be well communicated.
Yes.
But we don't do that.
Yeah, we currently, that is currently not our practice either.
So the updates will be shared at our next leadership council with our principals.
It shouldn't be our practice.
I did also want to point out that the city daycares, however, do practice mass screening. And so what we may want to do if we go ahead with this policy is we may want to put this on the joint articulation agenda so that we can talk to them about that, because otherwise the hysteria will just come back in through the back door, is that they will do the screenings. If we don't do the screenings, they'll do them at the daycares, and they will, they will inform the parents, and then they will go, well, why didn't the schools tell us? So we may want to speak to them and say, listen, we had these meetings with the nurses, you may want to get guidance from the same place. It would be ideal if we could harmonize our policies.
So I don't know if you heard, but all of these updates to this board policy will be shared with the principals at the next leadership council. And then they'll share that out with their staff.
Okey dokey, so we'll see it again on consent? No. Yes, we will see it on consent with that one change?
Yes.
All right, I've lost my place. Now what comes after head lice?
History and social science?
Williams. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, history and social science instruction, BP 6142.94.
Okay, 6142.94 is regarding our history and social science instruction. It was part of our August 2014 policy maintenance. We needed to take some time to research the impact of Senate Bill 48 on Education Code 51204.5. And so in our research, we discovered that this legislation was not reflected well from our perspective in relationship to this BP, in that it didn't update the specific groups that SB 48 really called out. And the groups that we're talking about are really are the social groups, and I highlighted in our policy which includes the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender Americans and persons with disabilities. It really sort of kept it still at a very generic level. And so by making these additions, I think it just calls out those added groups that that Senate Bill SB 48 really wanted to highlight and include in our curriculum.
Yes.
I just went and did some more research on the Senate bill, and they have it a little bit more descript, including Native Americans, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, European Americans, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and those with disabilities. So I'm just wondering why we can't add that language also.
You can probably where, because they talked about various cultural, ethnic, racial, religious, so it's kind of all of the groups that are highlighted, but if you want to just kind of take various, take those generic things and we could just load in the actual wording would be fine. I mean, I think it captures all of that. So if you wanted, what I could do is in the, where is it? On page 2, after number 3, that paragraph, the curriculum shall reflect the experiences of, and then you could just, a study of the role and contributions of both men and, and state all of those groups, because I have that verbiage here. Would you like that? We could do that.
I think since we're doing,
Yeah.
including everybody, I think it would be a good idea. That's just my feeling.
Nice to point out what those groups are that often get left off
Right.
of the curriculum, and that, we want to make sure everybody knows.
And I also think that this, one of the things that I wonder is how well this corresponds with the texts that we're actually using. I mean, so it's one thing to call this out in the BP and say we want, we want this to be done, and then get a textbook that doesn't actually do it. And I know that we're working on a history and social science plan eventually, and so maybe at this, I think that question is really something that needs to be visited at that point, because I don't. It's a very enlightened policy. I don't know if our practice is living up to that policy.
And you're correct, because of the timing. We haven't had they tabled history, social science for several years when we were going through our fiscal issues. Now that we're kind of on a rebound, we started with mathematics, and now we're going through history, social science. They have science, next generation science standards. And so they are talking about a social studies framework, so we're starting discussions around that. But we also do have our content teachers who teach only social science. So after our discussion, if it appears that it will go forward for second reading on Monday, they will be reviewing and looking at the frameworks. We've had them go to the San Mateo County Office of Education planning meetings that they might want to start thinking about how we can include these social groups into our conversations, because this really isn't about, you don't have to have necessarily a textbook to have a conversation around these great people and these great leaders. And I think that our current curriculum, History of Life, really lends itself to allowing us to build in resources and reference materials.
So we're actually, this policy as it's read and as we will approve says Board shall adopt standards aligned instructional materials for history, social science, according to the central law, board policy, administration regulation. In addition, teachers are encouraged to supplement the curriculum through the use of biographies, original documents, diaries, letters, legends, speeches, and other narrative artifacts and literature from and about the period being studied that accurately portray the cultural and racial diversity of our society. So, you know, this is what we're saying our board policy is, that teachers supplement, you know, we encourage teachers to supplement in order to meet these.
And I have
these
to say,
guidelines.
History Alive is a wonderful curriculum to allow us to do that. It is not necessarily that open your textbook and read your chapter and answer the questions at the back. It's really a very user-friendly kind of program like that.
I'm glad to hear that. I think that we can't, we may not be able to wait until the state considers history to actually be worth studying again before we actually update our, because I mean, I don't know when the last time the state actually looked at these standards was, and the next time is clearly going to be a very long time from now. And, you know, I was talking to one of our middle school social studies teachers, and obviously I think they're very concerned about the fact that this really just does not seem to be a priority for the state, and so, you know, but it could still be a priority for us, particularly for them, particularly for the middle school teachers.
And I think what's encouraging is, in looking at the frameworks, I don't really see a huge alignment, like next generation science standards is really sort of pulling us into a interesting direction by adding engineering, the mathematics piece. I think history, social science, as the information we're seeing now is really going to sort of stay the way that our grade levels have been learning history, social science. So I think it may be an easy adaptation, and I think that our adoption could look very similar to what we are currently using. So it's just going to be interesting for us to watch, but we already do provide that enhancement. And the neat thing is, I think, having our history, social science teachers really articulating and working with our English language arts teachers in relationship to reading and writing workshop. Because now you're starting to see really that true integration of when they're reading autobiographies to look for these types of leaders and these social groups, etc., that can help us understand in a much global citizenship manner, you know, what we're all about and how we can all interact together. Because it's not who your next door neighbor is anymore. It's sometimes who's across that ocean, you know. So it's an exciting time.
So, and another part of the policy says that the superintendent or designate shall evaluate and report to the board regarding the implementation and effectiveness of the history, social science curriculum, including but not limited to the extent to which the program is aligned with state standards, blah, 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 blah. So,
just so you know, in this particular recommendation on, I don't know why mine isn't numbered, to page 3, I did take out the word regularly, because what does that mean? But we will evaluate and report, and I took out at each grade level, because we really sort of do it more globally. But we'll and I added state student assessment results, because we really don't have a way to capture necessarily right this moment. So I like to do things that we can do. Any kind of history, social science, how do I know that they really know the standards? Right now, I can't remember what grade level, but there was a grade level or two that took the CSTs, and that's not on the docket right now. So science we're still continuing, but not history, social science. So I'd like to wait, you know, so I took off assessments, because we really don't have a way to capture that yet, and we're really still trying to focus on getting our ELA and our mathematics down well. and then we can eventually bring this back once the state gives us some direction about assessments for history, social science.
So, should we take that off of the policy that you're gonna evaluate and report to the board regarding the implementation and effectiveness? If you're not gonna be able to do that at this point, is it, or
Well, and I think,
or do we, should we expect some kind of metric, maybe anecdotal metric or
Right,
or something that you could report?
because it is in our LCAP, I mean, I have it under broad course of study. What that we do, because I think that we owe it to our students to have a well-rounded education content. So I think it's fine to have it on there, but to say, what does regularly mean? Is that once a month? Is that once a year? Do you see what I'm saying? So I think that I would prefer if I could just report when we do the LCAP, I can let you know kind of what we're doing. And does that make sense?
Yeah. All right. Next, we're still ahead of the game here. Okay. 11C, October 24th, October, at least for the ones I had. 2014 Special Policy Maintenance and Series, so which?
So now,
So now we got uniform complaint?
right.
Okay. BP 1312.3 Uniform Complaint Procedure.
It won't let me go down there. Oh. Oh, here. I'll come over here. I got it. Thank you, sorry. Sorry.
Anything you can say to us, Wendy, about the uniform complaint procedures that?
This was just an update in relationship to adding new language regarding discrimination complaints. So it was just really sort of to highlight that.
And this is about the procedures for complaints about harassment, intimidation, bullying. Let's see, complaints about child nutrition program, special ed program, bullying. Oh, here it was. So, a notification of our policies needs to be posted, needs to be annually provided to students, employees, parents, or guardians. If 15% or more students enrolled in the district speak a single primary language other than English, then the notifications need to be in that language.
Correct.
And do we have anything at 15%, or do we think it would be a good idea to put these kind of notifications in our most extensive language other than English?
If any, it would be probably Spanish. Of course, the difficulty with our district office of our size is we do not have translators here. And so I know that Sunset Ridge, for example, who has a higher population of Hispanic-speaking families, might put their flyers and things like that translated, but we don't necessarily do our large documents. We can look at it because usually if you do a parent notification, you're not going to change a lot. So if you keep the template pretty close, you can do that. And I'm not sure what our population, what the percentage of our population is who speaks Spanish. I wish I could think of that off the top of my head, but I can't. But I know, because I monitor that. We can bring back cost analysis of what that would cost and a percentage of who they are. But that's our biggest language. Yeah.
I mean, I know, in the past, I've asked about the percentage at Sunset Ridge, and I know that it's more than 15% at Sunset Ridge, but since we only have 9% ELLs in the district, it's obviously not district-wide, but if we did decide to do it in Spanish, like, surely some other, because it's UCP, right? Everybody has to have the same UCP policies, so is there the possibility of like essentially stealing someone else's UCP
Yes.
and just have it, the translator would really just have to go in and
Well-
drop in Pacifica School District instead of?
Yes, and I must say, I think that the state of California has provided some wonderful resources in relationship to translated documents, but you need to have somebody who can read it and make sure that it really reflects what we're saying, and then you have to go research and find it. And the way we do the UCP and inform our families is through the parent handbook. And so we would have to really have that entire handbook translated.
Oh, I see,
Now-
we don't have a Spanish language parent handbook?
No, we do not.
Well, I think that we should.
So we don't have a Spanish handbook? Is that
No,
what you're
it's not
saying?
translated. I don't believe, no. Because we don't hit the 15% threshold.
But at Sunset Ridge, what is the threshold?
I'd have to look at their percentages before I say that it hits that threshold. I'm not sure for a particular language.
So I think that when we talk about spending supplemental funds, that might be something we can spend supplemental funds on.
Absolutely. And it may include hiring a person who has the skill set, because like I said, when people translate, you have to be careful that it really is saying what we want it to say. And especially through education, as we all know, we have our own little language. And sometimes they're not translating it as we want them to. So I think that it would behoove us, if we want to go in that direction, that we really are starting to talk about personnel, a person who is skillful too.
With the new funding, though, we're going to have to be accountable and provide things in Spanish and translators so that the Spanish-speaking parents are aware of how we're spending money.
Right, so what we would do, what we have done in the past is you can hire people to come. We might have a paraprofessional who speaks Spanish. I know Angie has helped us, but that's not her responsibility in her day-to-day job as a translator. And so I think those would be things that we have to be thoughtful about as we look at building programs like that. I mean, there are a multitude of things that I believe we could do as we go and start delving into and looking at the supplemental funds. The notion of having headsets, so you can have multiple translators who speak Chinese, who speak Tagalog, who speak Spanish, and people put on headsets. They could sit in the audience and they know exactly what's going on. But again, that's a cost, and it's finding the translators. But there are a lot of support people out there. I think San Mateo County Office of Ed has a number of people who could come, and you would ask them to come and you pay them like a consultant for a particular meeting or 2 or 3, however you're going to do it. Special ed department would have specialized people who really can help us in working on IEPs, and we do that on a case-by-case basis.
I just can't believe that one of our Spanish-speaking families wouldn't know what the handbook says, the school handbook of what our policies are on attendance, anything, the bell schedule. I mean,
Well,
just.
I agree with you, Laura, that, I feel like this is something that we really should provide for our community. I mean, to have, even if it's 10% of our parents that don't know, that can't read the handbook because it's not in their language, that seems like that's something that we should be able to, spend a few bucks of our supplemental, get it translated, and maybe we have somebody here in the district that could proof it. But using a service is fine for that kind of thing, It may have to spend $1,000,
Well, and again, as I
I think you need to
said,
provide, I think, I don't know, how do the rest of you feel about this?
I agree 100%. I mean, I think the handbook in particular provides policies that we expect families and students to abide by. We can't really hold them to abiding by policies that they can't read. So if it's, and maybe we could come back and talk, you can get a report from Ellie on what percentage that we're talking about, but at Sunset Ridge at least, I think it's fairly high.
And that goes into IBL, so I mean, we're really, we're not just talking about one school, we're talking about.
and it would be the Hispanic language. So we can work on that.
Okay, thanks. All right, next is bullying. Is that the next one? EP 5131.2, bullying. So what I noticed was a kind of a sound definition of cyberbullying. And I wonder if anybody else took a look at that to see if that's an acceptable definition of cyberbullying. And I don't know where it is because I have to take out all those notes and everything. I can't read it with all these stupid notes in it. But it's a paragraph that starts cyberbullying.
On page 6.
So I see cyberbullying includes the creation of or transmission of harassing communications, direct threats, or any other harmful text, sounds, or images on the internet, social media, or other technologies using a telephone, computer, or any wireless communication device. Cyberbullying also includes breaking into another person's electronic account and assuming that person's identity in order to damage that person's reputation. And to me, this is kind of like uncharted territory. Is there anything that you might feel like we left out that would be cyberbullying?
I thought that did a good job of capturing some of the events that we have seen already that have actually come before the board. So I feel like it actually captures some of those really well, but it is actually maybe something that we might want to flag in case later on we find that there are things going on that we feel are inappropriate, and I think Ray would probably bring that to us if you felt that there was, if something was going on that you felt was not entirely covered by the policy, but that we really ought to be taking a strong stance on. I assume you would come back and tell us that we should modify the policy.
And then I think we're on top of the bullying prevention. Anything else? Anything in the policy? Anybody else?
I did want to point out, not for this policy, but just so we can look at for future ones, that, according to Ed Code, it says school staff who witness an act of bullying shall immediately intervene to stop the incident when it is safe to do so. And also that they're required to report it. So I want to come back to that when we look at the other policies in this group.
Okay. So we move on to 5145.3, non-discrimination harassment. And this is harassment of students, right? Or is this one?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is where I wanted to bring up that I could not find an equivalent to the statement that I just read in either the non-discrimination or sexual harassment policies, that there was no requirement on the part of staff to report them. So that sort of led me to the conclusion that if a student was being bullied, then staff would be required to intervene and report that. But if a student was being sexually harassed or discriminated against based on one of the categories that's listed in the policy, there wasn't actually a requirement that they report it, which doesn't mean that they wouldn't, but I was just wondering whether that is, if that's not in the ed code, maybe it should be in the BP, like, just as a thought.
I think that's a really good point. And it's not asking too much of teachers to be responsible for that. I think that's part of their job. Reporting harassment.
And it should be something that they're sensitive to, in the same way that we spend a lot of time talking to staff about what bullying is and how to look out for it. Like, there should be some materials about what constitutes discrimination or harassment, how would you recognize it, and what do you have to do when you see it.
So I don't know, I'm wondering if this particular policy, though, is really about the bullying and harassment itself, where the other policy is about the reporting process. Do you know how it differentiates?
Well, we're talking about the 1,000 series versus the 4,000 series, but...
This is the 5...
Oh, it is the 5,000 series, even though it's, okay, so, but, well, they're not all... Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're right. But in the bullying 5131.2 sample, it says, because of ed code, it says ed code requires that teachers must intervene in an act of bullying and they must report it.
Number 6 on this one says, at the beginning of each school year, inform school employees that any employee who witnesses any act of discrimination, harassment, intimidation, or bullying against a student is required to intervene if it is safe to do so.
Oh, okay, so it says all of those. Yeah. Okay, then I'm good. I read it like, this happens all the time. I read it like 7 times and I can't find the thing I want, and you just, okay, never mind, we're done. Okay, move on. Move on.
I'm reading it going to say.
It's in there. Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought this has a really good description of the gender identity, gender nonconforming students, and what the expectations are, what is conduct which is prohibited, and some of it seems very middle school to me. And since it is such a long, it's kind of a long, nice, discussion of that, it might be something to consider in some of our, PBIS and stuff, some of the language from the policy. Having kids think about that, you can't harass somebody just because of the way they wear their hair, and that their hair made, any young female in a middle school setting who cuts their hair short gets, that kind of harassment, and that is harassment. So, just wanting to bring some of the wording from the policy into our practice. Uh, 5143.3 is listed twice here. Oh, that's because it's the AR?
Yeah, now we're at the AR, which follows through with the actions if this type of harassment occurs.
So that's where it said, it's saying the AR about teachers had reporting?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Number 6.
How about sexual harassment? 5145.7. do we do the teacher sexual harassment training on a regular basis? We had that in here that time, right? That people from the county do that?
Do it annually.
It's an annual thing? And then do we have some kind of student sexual harassment instruction training?
It's done individually at the school sites depending on grade level specific. And it'll either filter through the classroom for elementary grade or content area for middle school.
And is that part of our PBIS?
Mm-hmm.
And we can suspend anybody in fourth grade or above for sexual harassment. Staff member can be dismissed if they're sexually harassing a child. The lawyers always say this is the stuff that you gotta watch out for. People get, school districts get sued on this stuff.
So if their policies are not tight enough around that area?
Or you don't follow up.
If you don't follow through.
Sure.
Yeah. Something in the South Bay a couple of years ago, I think, which got everybody new training, I think. Any thoughts? Okey dokey. Any thoughts on the AR? Okay. We're down to future agenda items. So what's yours?
Meeting to that. Sure.
Wendy, is this yours? Oh, you're just trying to find it?
Sandy will hunt you down.
I don't know, my computer is like acting up. Okay, future agenda items. No, I think everything's on there. What I did want to point out for February 11th, we do have at 5 o'clock, from 5 to 6 o'clock, a Pacifica Education Foundation joint meeting that we hold over at the Valamar Band Room. Then we finish there at 6 and then come for closed session. So hopefully everyone will be able to make it. Then they will present, if you can, they will do a short presentation in our formal board meeting that evening as well. I think that was the biggie. And then I will bring, we'll add the resolution for what we just talked about for the boundaries.
Is there anything that people would like to add to a future agenda? Yes, Matt.
So having talked about history and social science, I actually not necessarily immediately, but if we can maybe stick it on future agenda items for potentially at some point, maybe over the course of the year, it would be interesting to have a work study on history and social science and see where it is. Like, not expecting, but obviously we're not expecting like we do with science, like a whole here's how we lay out all the new stuff. But I think it would be good to have to have an update on where that is. Not so much from the state side, as we know that the state side is actually doing ZIP, but from the perspective of our teachers.
Actually, they're not. I mean, they are having the conversation on the frameworks, which is very exciting for us. So there's not really much to talk about in relationship. I mean, I think that could be a 15-minute to half an hour conversation, depending on how much questions we have. So I'm wondering if I could include that in when we're doing our LCAP and really highlighting it in our broad course of study to bring it out as part of our work.
Okay.
Because we really are doing that. So, but I'm going to put it on here to remind me to do it. The other thing I did want to ask, so I thank you for having me look at future agenda items. I think it would be very important for our, especially our new board members, to go over the organization and efficiency review document that we received from school services. They came and they did an extensive survey about our business department, human resources, in relationship to, as we're talking about, and as was discussed, Josie does an excellent job in budget and finance. Ray is doing a great job in human resources. However, we are seeing that the cuts that have occurred over these few years are now starting to take its toll. We're finding things that we need to fix. We drop the ball on highly qualified, but then we bring it back because people are just doing too many jobs under one hat. So instead of bringing people in piecemeal, we thought it'd be nice to have a consultant come in and help us see, because we don't really necessarily know what works out in the field, with other districts. So we did that, and we're thinking that it would be a great review to go over with all of us as we now look at our new budget for next year. And so if there is a date that we could look at, and we'd like to do it probably prior to our March 4th meeting, correct? So that we have an opportunity to then bring in the discussion with what we should do for our budget. So any suggestions on dates?
So this would be, what would you call this session?
This would be a work study.
It'd be a work study?
On organization and efficiency review. Is that what it was called? Organization and efficiency review?
So do we have a work study? Yeah, we thought we had a work study between February 11th and March 11th.
I don't.
Okay, it's March 4th.
Did you want to, so we had been holding the 25th for potential negotiation issues. Do you want us to, because otherwise we have a board meeting on the 11th, then it's break, then it's the 25th, and then it's the 4th. So if we want to have it before the 4th and we want to do it on a Wednesday, the 25th is really the only date available, right? How does that sit with you?
February 25th?
February 25th?
What day of the week is that?
That's a Wednesday?
Okay.
Oh, I already have that as a work study.
No, we changed that work study to fit March 4th.
Yeah, I obviously didn't take it off my calendar.
So good, you're here.
So you're all
So
set.
just keep it there.
Yeah, I can touch it.
And March.
Okay.
Yes.
6, is that,
Oh, yeah.
6 p.m.?
Yeah.
You guys all have to sign this. It's for everybody.
Okay, so what day are we talking about?
Wednesday, February 25th.
25th, Wednesday.
Is that enough? Would that be enough time for you? Okay.
And is that at 6 o'clock again, or?
Yes.
Work studies are usually at 6.
And for that, there's the potential that might be a late one, because we may have to have a closed session at the end of it.
Correct.
Noted.
C.
Oh, so that means I need to put the time. Okay. I'll have to just stretch the calendar out a little bit. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other future agenda items? Yes.
I know that the climate of the schools is still being discussed, is that right, with the leadership? And I just wanted to revisit if it's possible, since I wasn't a board member, the suspension and expulsion rates. I think I read that it would just be reported yearly, and so I'm just wondering if there's any way we can look a little deeper into why there's a difference in who's being suspended and who's not, and who's being...
You know when we could do that is our work study on March 4th, because we do have suspension expulsion rates in our LCAP. We can highlight that at that time. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, because that, I think that's one of our metrics, that, so we need to talk about it anyway.
Is there any way to get any specifics about how many African Americans were suspended, how many Mexican Americans, and so on?
You should, would it be helpful? Because I had after that meeting, I had a meeting with Ray and Jennifer Gray, which was very helpful on the subject. And so it might be, beneficial, like, Ray, if you could pull out the same, you could basically pull out the same deck that you and Jennifer gave to me, and then, and sit down with Laverne and go through that. Because that was actually that was pretty helpful.
I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Just set up an appointment time when you're available. But I'll, would I
address it
also,
on that day.
I would also add it to that, right?
Anything else? Adjourned at 9:02.